senior thesis week. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like time has really flown by this week. But you know, it's what's the saying? Time flies when you're having fun, and I know you so I get to announce our final four. Our final four. It's like basketball, but not. Okay, so here we go. We have Riley Douglas and Rebecca Wyndham and Bailey Allison and Maxwell. We're so proud of you. Okay, it is time for our first presenter, Riley Douglas.
Good morning. My name is Riley Douglas, and I will be presenting my senior thesis on how moral values imply the presence of a divine being. Our world is full of different opinions. Politicians debate about whose policies will be better for the citizens of their country. Climate activists try to persuade others to cut down on carbon emissions in order to protect the environment. Sports fans argue if the GOAT is Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Everything in our world can be put up for debate. However, there is one discussion that holds more importance than all the others. Is God real? The existence of God can be explored through one of humanity's most important aspects, morality. Morality is the basis for proving the existence of an intelligent and benevolent creator. Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Emperor's New Clothes in 1837. In this story, a wealthy emperor only cared about one thing, his clothes. He spent all his money on new clothes and did not care about the army or public needs. One day, two tricksters came into town with the intention to fool the emperor and his people. They made the claim that they could weave the most marvelous cloth, because it was invisible to anyone who was unfit for their office or unforgivably stupid. The emperor loved it and ordered it to be woven right away. The emperor sent many of his officials to see the cloth and tell him what it looked like. But when they saw that there was nothing, they lied about the cloth because they were afraid to lose their office. At last, it was time for the emperor to see the new clothes. But when the tricksters showed it to him, panicked thoughts rushed through his mind because he could not see a thing. The emperor lied and told everyone how much he loved the patterns of the new, non-existent clothes. The tricksters were made royal knights of the loom, and a parade was scheduled to honor the emperor's new clothes. The tricksters demanded the emperor not to wear anything under the new clothes, so the emperor removed his garments and pretended to put on the new clothes. During the parade, everyone in the town cheered for the emperor's new clothes because no one wanted their neighbor to think that they were stupid. However, a child spoke up and yelled, "But he doesn't have anything on." Eventually, the whole town joined in with the child chanting, "He has nothing on." The emperor, knowing he has been fooled, struts naked and more proud than ever, just trying to end this embarrassing parade. And the tricksters, swimming in the emperor's wealth, lived happily ever after. Long ago, science finally took the stage. Science came into the town. Great thinkers and scientists alike shifted the way the world thought. As they discovered more truths about the world, so their prominence and authority rose, leading people to easily believe what they said. They went from telling people the facts to preaching about things unseen, or estimations. "If you don't believe in science, then you're stupid," said their followers, moving more people to go from skepticism to blind faith. With a gain of blind faith followers, the claims of truth stretch further from fact and more into things we don't know, evolution being the prize. If you don't believe in evolution, you're stupid. Religion is just a hoax. How can you actually believe in that stuff? This has put religion under attack. Science went from glorifying our Creator to attempting to make him a myth. In spite of this attack, we need people to stand up and say, what if not everything science says is true? How are they so sure we are products of evolution? How are they so sure that there is no God? Scientists will tell you that what they say is the truth, just like the tricksters told the emperor that the clothes were real. In fear of being seen as stupid, the emperor and the townsfolk cheered for the non-existent clothes. However, all it took was a child who was not afraid of being seen as stupid to stand up and speak the truth. This in turn led everyone in the town to stop believing the trickster's lie. This does not mean to completely abandon science. It is still a great institution with lots of beneficial facts. However, we need to be careful with the information we receive. Scientists and their followers will tell you that God is dead. But what if he's not? What if God is alive and has been since the beginning of time? For the sake of clarity, some terms will need to be expounded on. Morality can be defined as an objective set of principles that is widely accepted as right. Examples of right are righteousness, fairness, bravery, and respect. The law of human nature is the metaphorical angel on our shoulder that directs us to act morally and makes us feel guilty when we act immorally. Evolution in this paper refers to the atheistic macroevolutionist view that precludes the involvement of intelligent design. Also, the word God does not refer to the Judeo-Christian God or any pagan deity. It simply refers to an intelligent and benevolent creator. The purpose of this paper is to find the truth about if our world was created by something higher, without going into detail about who specifically created it. C.S. Lewis wrote Mere Christianity, a book that lays the claims for the basic principles of Christianity, starting with the existence of a creator. Lewis, one of the most decorated Christian authors of the 20th century, was raised in a Protestant household, but turned away from religion as a young man before returning back to the faith in his 30s. His worldview changed when a prominent faculty member at Oxford University, T.D. Weldon, confided to Lewis that he believed the authenticity of the Gospels to be sound. This idea troubled Lewis and helped jumpstart his life without God into a deep devotion to the Christian faith. Stop. That's wrong. Give that back. It's mine. You promised you would help me. How could you? Give me some of your snacks. I gave you some of mine the other day. I helped you. Now it's your turn to help me. These are all phrases that we say and don't really pay much attention to. Even though the phrases are different in meaning, there is something that they have in common: the standard of right and wrong. Well, what does that mean? Author Matthew Scully provides insight by stating, when we call something unfair or indecent or unconscionable or evil, when we speak of mercy and pity and compassion, those words have meaning regardless of our particular faith or moral philosophy. They appeal to common standards that we are all expected to understand and accept, standards without which we cannot live any common life at all. In the previous examples, the person talking has an expectation of conduct that they believe the target listener should follow because it is right in the speaker's eyes. The interesting thing is that the majority of humans have similar views on what right is. The idea of right and wrong is not a new thought because even ancient philosophers believed in the moral compass. Aristotle addresses in his writings that, from what has been said, then it is clear that one cannot be, strictly speaking, good without practical wisdom, nor practically wise without moral goodness. Aristotle believed that morality and wisdom were so closely related that in order for someone to be moral, they must also be wise, and vice versa. Even today, we associate people who make good decisions with attributes of wisdom. In our lives, we might expect others to act properly, but what's fascinating is that we, the individuals, also demand goodness from ourselves. We have this internal code that urges us to do what is right. Lewis calls this code the law of human nature. And the hard reality of this law is that we break it, not just occasionally, but all the time. There is hope in this. Even though we might break the law still exists. For example, if you go over the speed limit, the speeding laws are still present, and you might even get punished with a ticket for breaking the law. The same goes for the law of human nature, but instead of punishment, we feel this strange sense of guilt that we have done something wrong, and sometimes it does not go away until we right our wrong. Something else that is strange about the law is that it does not seem to care about the pain it might cause you. Telling the truth is right, but when you do something wrong, owning up to your mistake may cause embarrassment or even punishment. Sacrificing your health or your life for someone else is noble, brave, and seen as one of the greatest actions a person can do. But other than a medal or some other form of recognition, what real good does it do to you as the individual? In reality, it could potentially cause more harm than good. So why do we feel like we ought to do it? The answer is simple. We have this code to do what is right, hardwired somewhere in us, and that is what makes us human. This law that is real and inside us is one of the links between the physical world and the divine mastermind behind it. Now that we have an understanding of what morality is and how it affects all of us through the law of human nature, why is it so important? How could a law that urges us to do what is right potentially point to a creator in the cosmos? The answer lies in this. Without this creator, we cannot have any sense of morality. It is not that simple, though, because atheists and evolutionists argue that morality is man-made and evolved, not given to us by the divine. The idea of blind faith is confusing to some people, but what if it is not completely blind? Lewis states that if there is something behind, then either it will have to make itself altogether unknown to man, or else make itself known in some different way. We live in a world where God chooses to be mysterious. The problem with this is that people only look at the black and white with God. Either he is real and we can see him, or he is not real and we cannot see him. One of the many adamant responses atheists make when they hear that God is real is, "Can I see him? Can you show me him?" This is a valid argument because there is no photographic evidence of any gods of any religion. Jesus Christ claimed to be the Son of God and is still believed by many to be the Son of God, but even so, his life on earth was only documented through eyewitness accounts. One problem with this way of reasoning is that people do not look hard enough for proof of God. Believers are burdened to show non-believers evidence of a creator, but at the same time, non-believers don't want to pause, think, and look for God. To answer the question, "Can you show me God?" what if I told you that we can see a glimpse of God, and that has been hiding in the same spot this entire time? Lewis begins to unravel this with the statement that there is one thing and only one in the whole universe that we know more about than we can study through external observation. And that one thing is man. We do not merely observe men, we are men. In all of science, we observe the world around us externally. But the one thing that you can actually internally observe is yourself. As Madonna put it, no one knows you better than you know yourself. So what do we know about ourselves? For starters, we all get hungry and we all get tired. Moving further, though, we know that we are under a moral law that has great power over us. This power tells us to do what is right no matter what. This law is beyond human behavior because it controls our behavior and tells us which actions are appropriate for each situation. In a chain of command, the higher power is the one in charge, and it commands the lower ranks. Using this logic, when we look for the true origin of morality, the only direction that we can look is up. Morality is above us, yet also inside us, as if something is trying to get us to do the right thing without being an overbearing force. Lewis summarizes this whole section with the statement that the only way we could expect it, a creator, to show itself would be inside ourselves as an influence or a command trying to get us to do the right thing, and that is just what we do find inside ourselves. Since the beginning of human history, people have often looked for the answer to the question, is there a God? Scientific theories have tried to replace God with rationality or facts, but the truth lies in every one of us through morality and the law of human nature. In the words of Dr. Justin L. Barrett, author of Why Would Anyone Believe in God? Belief in God comes naturally. Disbelief requires human intervention. The statement, I don't believe in God because science is fact and religion is faith, is one that everyone will probably hear at least once in their life, whether in person or online. With the way science has progressed since the scientific revolution, it is not hard for one to unconditionally believe in science's validity. We are exploring things and making groundbreaking discoveries that people from 100 years ago didn't even think were possible. This is good. We should discover more about our world. But where did it go wrong? Things went wrong whenever supporters of science started believing in things that haven't been proven completely true, which sounds a lot like faith. Maybe because it is a kind of faith. Dr. David Berlinski, in his book, The Devil's Delusion, makes the bold statement that Western science is above all the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This is an allusion to the definition of faith in Scripture that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Berlinski's point is that the way people believe in science today is identical to the way that Christians believe in Jesus. This concept is not talked about enough, but why? One reason is because those who blindly trust science fall into this false reasoning that everything that comes from science is true. However, if you think about it, there are claims in science that require a large amount of faith. Now, the majority of science is based on provable truths. Laws of gravity, conservation of energy, and laws of thermodynamics are all provable facts. However, just because there are things that in science that are true does not justify saying that everything that comes from science is a fact. For example, atheistic macroevolution. Evolution comes from a position of science, and because it comes from science, it is then regarded as a fact. Here's the flaw. We have no idea if this evolution is true, and unless we build a time machine, we just won't know for sure. We have no idea if all of life originated from a single organism, and no amount of science can prove that. But one of science's objectives doesn't have to be disproving a creator. Some of the greatest scientists, Newton, Galileo, Copernicus, all believed in an intelligent designer and wanted to study science so that they could explore the beauty he made, not trying to disprove his existence. Science and theism both require faith. However, one is a faith in man, and the other is a faith in something much greater than our earthly minds can comprehend. Wilfred Trotter was a surgeon and sociologist whose writings around the time of World War I popularized the term herd instinct. Trotter, in his book, Instincts of the Herd and Peace of War, makes a statement about herd instinct, stating that these facts stated here in an extremely summary way demonstrate that conscious is an indirect result of the gregarious instinct and is in no sense derived from a special instinct forcing men to consider the good of the race rather than individual desires. By gregarious, Trotter means social. Trotter believes that our conscience or morality is a result of human social structure and is in no sense derived from a special instinct given by a divine creator. Lewis refutes the herd instinct by stating, of course, we sometimes do feel just that sort of desire to help another person, and no doubt that desire is due to herd instinct. But feeling a desire to help is quite different from feeling that you ought to help, whether you want to or not. If morality were merely herd instinct, then our decision-making process would be black and white. Either the action is good for the herd or the action is bad for the herd. However, we have to make hard decisions. And sometimes those decisions go against the herd's benefit, like sacrificing yourself for someone else who is unable to help themselves. Yet that action is right. It is then logical to say that herd instinct is a part of morality, but ultimately under morality's judgment. One of the most popular arguments for why a good creator can exist is the problem of evil. The problem of evil is a philosophical concept that follows the premise, if there is a God who is omnipotent and good, why is there evil in the world, and why does he allow it? This is a valid argument, and one that atheists have used to debate theists with the goal of understanding why there is bad in the world. Why do loved ones die? Why do innocent, good-hearted people have to suffer? Why do people kill other people? Why are there hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis that destroy villages and cities? These questions must be answered, because why would anyone want to believe in a God who just sits back and lets his world crumble to dust? St. Thomas Aquinas attempts to unravel this heavily loaded question in his works Summa Theologica with the statement, God is the highest good. He would not allow any evil to exist in his works unless his omnipotence and goodness were such as to bring good even out of evil. What the great saint means is that yes, God is good, and yes, there is evil, but God doesn't just sit back and let his world crumble to dust. Instead, he uses it for good. How does he use it for good? How could evil possibly be used for good? The analogy of light in a dark room is a useful way for understanding this concept. Suppose you lived in an infinitely light-filled room your entire life. If there were no shadows, no dark spots, and the room never got darker or brighter, would you truly understand that the room has light? No, because light and dark exist in duality. Without the comparison to darkness, the concept of light cannot be fully demonstrated. Light is only quantifiable when there is some form of darkness to compare it to. A candle is only bright if you place it in a dark room. How does this apply to good and evil? If we lived in an infinitely good world, then the concept of good cannot be fully demonstrated because there is no evil to compare it to. We only know good and value good because it is contrasted by things that are evil. Evil is a test, and it is on those who are being tested to see the good in the world, to look up to the mastermind who wants its prized creation to choose good over all the challenges of evil. The problem of evil is a hard concept for both theists and atheists alike, but the truth can be revealed when one looks past the evil and instead looks for the good, or the light at the end of the dark tunnel of our world. Differing opinions and arguments are a natural part of life in this world. Sometimes the opinions of others can lead you to the truth, but other times all the different voices can cause you to stray from it. We have to be careful. When the tricksters in the kingdom said that those who could not see the clothes that were imaginary are stupid, people actually believed it. However, all it took was a child to rise up and unravel the trick. We need to be more like that child. Science is great, but there is a difference between evidence proven by hard facts and claims made with guesses, even if those guesses are educated. People will tell you that we were made by chance, that our morality is instinct, and evil is proof that God isn't real. However, these claims are not the truth. The truth is, we were made by a Creator who is good and loves each and every one of us. Dr. William Lane Craig says that the modern age, more or less repudiating the idea of a divine lawgiver, has nevertheless tried to retain the ideas of moral right and wrong, not noticing that in casting God aside, they have also abolished the meaningfulness for moral right and wrong. The presence of a God gives human morality a purpose, to allow the Creator to get a glimpse of the intelligence and the benevolence of the universe's creator. Thank you. I would now like to open the floor for some questions.
I have a comment before I have a question. So Riley, as I sat here looking at you, in my mind I kept picturing 8th grade Riley with that big, booming, undeniable Riley Douglas voice. And I don't know if you remember, I used to tell you a lot that you could get a part-time job as a PA system. It is an amazing thing to watch over the years in students how God can take a gift and we get to see Him use it for your good and His glory. That was a beautiful presentation. So, my question I want is kind of twofold. I'd like for you to share with everybody how you came about choosing this topic and why, in your definition of terms, you said that you weren't referring to a Judeo-Christian God, but more a benevolent divine being.
Okay, those are two amazing questions. Starting with the first one, the reason I chose this topic is it has two reasons. The first one was Mr. Hayes' debate class, sophomore year. We went over a section of trying to prove the existence of God with logic, and after we completed that class, I was like, man, that would be a great senior thesis. But the biggest reason for why I chose this topic was during my junior year, I completely lost my faith with God. I didn't think He was real. I thought He was just some bogus myth made up by people who just wanted other people to just put money in a basket so that they could profit off of it. And I've been raised in a Christian household my entire life. So I wanted to give God one more chance to show me why He's real. And so I picked this thesis so that in my research I could find proof that God is real. And originally I was going to start with just proving the existence of God, but I narrowed it down to how morality proves the existence of God because, in my opinion, it's just such an obvious reason, and now my faith in God is much stronger than it's ever been my entire life, so this thesis played a huge part in that. Yes?
I have not known you as long as Miss Cheney has, but I have to say I've been really impressed with your work, and as we were throughout the course of this year talking about this frequently and working on it together. I've seen you never flinch. I told you need to get into Thomas Aquinas, and you were like, okay, you came back a week later and you had stuff from Aquinas. We talked about herd instinct, and I don't want to steal your comment, but we were talking a little bit ago about how you found the place where that actually originated in the discussion, which I had no idea where that was, and I think that was a matter of days you brought that back to me. So you've done excellent work here, and really good job presenting as well. I have a question about your comment. You quoted from Dr. Justin Barrett, and he says that belief in God comes naturally, but disbelief requires human intervention, which is a really interesting concept. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that, mainly because it occurs to me that there are two kinds of people. There's some that would say everything should have human intervention, nothing that's natural is any good. So they'd be overjoyed that this requires human intervention. Then there's the other kind of people that anything that's natural in a certain sense, it feels good, like it kind of comes naturally, that's the way to go. So how does your thesis, how does it speak to both of these kind of mindsets?
That's a great question. And to answer it, I'll kind of unpack the quote a little bit. So if you take the God part out of it and just belief comes naturally, disbelief requires human intervention, that is true in every single person. Everyone believes in something. And oftentimes, if not most of the times, if not all the time, we make whatever we believe in our God. Some people say that I believe that money will make me happy. Money's their God. They serve money. Some people are like, I serve my spouse. My spouse will make me happy. They put their spouse in that God's position. So every single person believes in something, but when they start to not believe in that, like money may not make me happy or my spouse may not make me fulfilled, that's requiring human intervention. Same goes for the creator of our universe. Belief comes naturally, disbelief requires human intervention. That second part about people who say everything that comes naturally is bad, and the other people that everything that comes naturally is good, I would refute that by saying, if you think that everything that comes natural is bad, that is a natural instinct. Therefore, it's kind of a flaw in the argument, because I naturally believe that everything that comes natural is bad. Therefore, you're playing into the argument. So that's how I would. That's my answer to that.
Ron, you did an excellent job. So proud of you. Two questions. One, Lewis's fundamental argument is we all know there's a right and wrong. We all break our own sense of right and wrong. So in that, when we break that sense of right and wrong, we feel this nagging guilt, as you said. But studying this all year, I'm sure that that's got to weigh on you, right? You're studying about why right and wrong is so important, and how we naturally have a proclivity to break it and screw it up or whatever. I'm curious if that's haunted you through the year, if that makes sense.
Not really, because I would say that my moral compass, for the most part, has always been pretty strong. It takes a lot to get me to do something that I know isn't right. I have to battle myself a lot. So, not really, because I've always kind of had that strong foundation of what right and wrong is. You can thank my parents for that. They did a pretty good job with that. So no, it hasn't really haunted me.
All right, I appreciate that. And then secondly, I guess this is a little bit of a complicated question, but it seems like you're giving science a lot of credit for being atheistic, as opposed to faith and theism.
Right.
But it seems like the root of science is actually God, and I guess my question is it's some of the statement, some of the question, but it seems like guys like Richard Dawkins use science as a foil to justify their biases or their unbelief. I'm just curious if you could speak to that for a minute.
That is absolutely correct. The problem with science is that it's a study of the world. And unfortunately, our world is messed up and it's screwed. So it is designed to be flawed in some sense because it is the world. And I do generalize science in my paper, but everyone knows that not all of science is atheistic. I'm talking about the premier high-level scientists, the ones that people think about when they think of scientists, like Bill and I, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Richard Dawkins, like you said. But there are examples, many examples of Christian scientists. For example, Miss Cruz right there, Christian scientist, and she studies science because she believes that science is direct proof of God, because we're studying the world that He made. But unfortunately, like I said, the world is flawed. And so science, too, is flawed in that sense. But yes, I agree with what you say. And I hope, because I think that the true catalyst for change in science is inside of science, with Christian scientists like Ms. Cruz, trying to push that science proves that God is real, not the opposite. So.
I'm going to do something unfair. I'm going to ask you an impossible question. Mainly because I want to hear your thoughts on it. The question is, why does God make Himself mysterious? It just seems like the hard way to do things, right? You refer to that in your paper and in your presentation, but And I'm reminded of a quote from True Tape Letters. It's not a direct quote, but it's these two demons talking to each other, and the demons are saying to each other that our enemy God, or our father below Satan, wants to overwhelm God. Our enemy wants to woo. And I don't know, why does God make himself mysterious? That seems.
There's actually a pretty perfect answer in my opinion. I do talk about it in my paper. Just because of time, I wasn't able to cover that. If God revealed himself, then our love to God would be forced because we know he's real. He makes himself known. It would be the difference between me saying, Mr. Drati, I love that tie, versus, yes, I do love that tie, versus you hearing my mom say, Riley, tell Mr. Drati that you love his tie. And I say, Mr. Drati, I love your tie. So God makes himself mysterious because he wants us to come to him with undeniable faith that he's real. Because then that means that our love to him is genuine and not forced because we know he's real.
And just a follow-up to that question, I think Lewis does deal with it, and I think you even alluded to it, that the problem with atheists is that they're not looking hard enough for God. So like creation, redemption, it seems like God does reveal himself pretty significantly in those two areas. I'm curious if you want to talk about those, because you do refer to that in terms of Jesus especially revealing himself.
Right. And I'll I'll answer it with, I think, and the reason why I didn't specifically choose God, our God, the Judeo-Christian God, is because from what I've researched and just seen, atheists are hostile to our religion. They don't really like Christians. And that is on part have a problem to do with us, because when we hear someone's an atheist, our first response is, I've got to tell them that they're wrong. And that's not the way to handle it. It's by building a relationship and sharing the love of Christ to them. So kind of to just like go back to your question, which was about atheism not looking hard enough for God. That's a part of why, and it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a God, it's our God. So that's why I wrote the paper to be non-specific, because when atheists hear Jesus, they close the doors already. So I'm trying to get them to, do you believe that there is a higher power? And I think from there it's much easier to bring someone to our God than to go from scratch straight jumping to Jesus. So, I'll start with you, Max.
So you mentioned that God is benevolent, correct?
Correct.
So how does a just and moral God let unborn babies die if they had never had any choice in the matter at all?
Excellent question. Unfortunately, that is not God's fault, and it's hard to go to that kind of extreme. But he told our ancestors, Adam and Eve, told them straight up, if you eat of the fruit, you will die. And really, he should have killed them then and there and been done with humans. But he loves us so much that he gave us redemption through Jesus. And so he gave us life, so all life is valuable. And even though products of sin have to be that cruel and extreme, we're lucky to even be living because God gave us another chance because he loves us so much. Yes, Sam?
So, large civilizations existed without our morality standards in past periods of time, like the Aztecs who participated in human sacrifice. However, civilizations like the Aztecs were destroyed in war, and the civilizations dissolved. Could you then point to war causing the standard for how societal morality is become into existence now?
No, because I still think that even though they had some messed up flaws in their morality, they still had some basic form of morality. I would imagine that if you went up to an Aztec and just slapped him in the face, that he would not be happy with that. Why? Because that's improper and immoral to just go up to someone and hit them. So, yes, they had some flaws. Flaws are everywhere. And their flaws might be bigger than other civilizations' flaws, but they still had basic principles of morality. Yes.
So, when you're talking about the presence of evil, and why it was needed, you used the analogy of the light and the dark. And I was wondering just, if light only exists in the dark, or like exists as the contrast of the dark, then how does heaven exist without evil?
That's actually an amazing question. I believe that heaven is a reward, and it is a reward for living the good life and believing in Jesus. So when we get to heaven, it is that reward of living in a perfect life. But unfortunately, the gates to heaven can't just be open for everyone, because then it wouldn't be genuine. So yes, heaven is perfect, but it's a reward of living a good life, and we will know, I lived a good life on earth. It's time for me to enjoy the fruits of my labor. So, yes.
Okay, Riley, I will wrap it up, but this is how I want to wrap it up. So about a year ago, when I was checking primary sources for college juniors, and we don't give our families enough credit for what they do to make all of this happen for our students. But you came to class with all these books. You had more than one, deciding on what your primary source was going to be. And you said that you and your mom had gone to the bookstore, and she spent over $100 on all these books that you were going to read. And I want to tell your mom that was $100 well spent.
For sure.
And we are so proud of how thorough your research is. And even, I know how excited you've been to do this, and you've handled it all so well. It was a very thorough senior thesis. We're very proud.
Thank you.